Welcome, travelers of time and myth, to Forgotten Scrolls. Tonight, I invite you to leave behind the day's burdens and immerse yourself in the life of a man who defied his destiny with both sword and spirit. If your mind is restless, if the modern world overwhelms you, or if you simply seek a refuge for true rest, this story is for you. Closing your eyes, you will journey to ancient Japan, where the wind caressed the fields and discipline forged legends. Today, you will come to know the warrior who was never truly defeated, Miyamoto Musashi. Musashi was not merely a swordsman, he was a soul in constant pursuit of perfection. An orphaned child who lived in the shadow of the mountains, he grew up without fear or strict guidance, forging his own path with an inner fire. At the tender age of 13, he slew his first opponent, initiating a series of combats that would transform him into an enduring legend. He fought over 60 duels without ever knowing defeat. Yet his greatest conquest was not achieved with the sword, but within his own soul. This journey will reveal how a fierce warrior transforms into a true sage. Throughout this narrative, you will discover his most famous battles, his formless philosophy, and his final encounter with death in the quiet solitude of a cave. You will learn how a wild youth evolved into a profound symbol of honor, strategy, and inner balance. He was not only a master of combat, he was also a remarkable artist, calligrapher, sculptor, and philosopher. His story gently reminds us that strength without wisdom remains incomplete, and that the art of living fully is, in itself, a profound discipline. This narration is meticulously designed to calm your spirit, to help you drift into sleep with the quiet echo of a life lived with absolute purpose. With every word, we gently seek to guide you towards deep rest, inspiring you with each silent teaching of Musashi. His story is not merely a tale from the distant past, it is a profound guide for those who seek clarity amidst chaos and purpose amidst the world's incessant noise. So, settle in comfortably, close your eyes if you wish, and allow your imagination to awaken while your body softly relaxes. Accompany us on this journey through sheathed swords, silent temples, and duels at dawn. This is a profound odyssey of courage, deep introspection, and lasting legacy. We promise you an experience as tranquil as it is profound, where each chapter will be a gentle caress to the soul and a quiet tribute to inner greatness. And if this type of content helps you find peace and knowledge, consider following our channel and becoming a member. Members receive early access to new stories and exclusive content to continue dreaming every night. May the spirit of Musashi accompany you as you close your eyes and let yourself be carried away. Chapter 1. The Boy Without a Name. In a small village nestled amidst mountains and shrouded in mist, a child was born who did not cry upon entering the world. His mother passed away shortly after his birth, and his father, a wandering warrior, soon vanished. He was raised by a Buddhist monk in the profound silence of a remote temple, amidst prayers and the quiet echoes of the wind. He was never christened with a true name. They simply called him Takezo. From an early age, the child displayed a gaze that pierced through the calm demeanor of adults, unlike other children. Takezo harbored no fear of the darkness nor the sounds of the forest. He spent hours observing the intricate movements of animals, learning from his surroundings without uttering a single word. His body grew strong and somewhat gangly, marked by countless scars from his mischievous adventures in the mountains. The monk who cared for him attempted to instill discipline, but the boy possessed the untamed spirit of an indomitable river. He preferred the ancient trees to the tatami mat and the profound silence to rigid rules. He frequently vanished for days, only to return covered in mud, his eyes alight with an inner fire. Some villagers considered him possessed by forest spirits. Others saw him as a pure force of nature. In truth, Takezo was searching for something he did not yet comprehend, a profound meaning, a clear direction. When he stumbled upon an old bakken, wooden sword, forgotten amidst ancient ruins, he felt a summons more powerful than any sermon. From that moment, his body and the wood became one. With that piece of wood, he endlessly practiced strikes against tree trunks, against shadows, and even against the wind itself. No one explicitly taught him how to wield a weapon, yet his instinct was as sharp as a master's blade. By the age of 10, he had already bested older youths in wrestling matches, though he invariably ended up punished. He cared little for scolding. He only yearned to perfect his movements, to grasp the intricate dance of combat. His world transformed into a realm of rhythm, precision, and raw force. The monk, fearing that violence would fester within him, sent him to train with a retired old samurai. Reluctantly, Takizo accepted, intrigued by the prospect of confronting someone stronger than himself. The old master awaited him each morning in a clearing surrounded by bamboos, and without words, they would begin to exchange blows. Initially, he was defeated time and again, yet his body absorbed the lessons as parched earth absorbs rain. Pain after pain, he slowly began to improve. Months of silent training passed, during which the boy forged something far deeper than mere muscles. He learned to listen to his surroundings, to anticipate without thinking, to breathe with the natural flow of the moment. Even without formal discipline, he transformed into a fierce, utterly unpredictable student. His master, though he never voiced it, recognized in him a spark of wild genius. However, the villagers did not share that view, and rumors about the young man grew darker by the day. One night, after an altercation with other village youths, Takizo vanished into the dense forest. He left behind only a broken branch, faint bloodstains, and footprints that faded into the undergrowth. Some claimed he had been devoured by wolves. Others believed he had escaped into the mountains, never to return. The truth is, he departed of his own accord, sensing that his destiny lay not in that place. He hungered for something grander, a profound need to test himself. At 13, Takizo was no longer an ordinary child. He wandered nameless roads, surviving on what he could find and sleeping beneath the vast expanse of stars. A dangerous calm had settled in his gaze, like the tranquil surface of a deep river. His body was agile, hardened by nature, and his hands knew both hard labor and fierce combat. He sought no companionship, only the opportunity to measure his strength on the battlefield. It was then that he heard whispers of a duel in a nearby village. A young disciple from a kenjutsu school sought challengers to test his skill. Takezo felt this was his chance, not for fame or vengeance, but from a pure desire to confront the unknown. Without announcing himself or fully understanding the rules, he presented himself as a disheveled stranger. No one took him seriously until they saw his fearless eyes. With a simple wooden stick in his hands, he accepted the challenge. The disciple, with his gleaming sword and impeccable uniform, regarded him with disdain. But when the combat began, the very air shifted. Takizo moved like a wild animal, unpredictable and utterly brutal. In a matter of seconds, his adversary lay unconscious, and a profound silence fell upon the village like an ominous omen. It was not merely a victory, it was a rupture. The boy without a name had vanquished a trained adult, humbling him without mercy. For many, it was a desecration of honor. For others, an act of wild genius. Takezo sought no reward, nor did he celebrate. He walked away with the same quiet composure with which he had arrived, as if he had merely done what was necessary. From that day, his name began to circulate with a mix of fear and astonishment. Destiny had taken its first turn. Chapter 2. The First Dawn, the Unfolding Destiny. That dawn was cloaked in gray, and the air carried the metallic taste of tension. Takezo, his clothes worn and hair disheveled, walked toward the village square as if utterly devoid of fear. His opponent, Arima Kihei, was a renowned samurai, known for his formidable skill and his acceptance of public challenges. People gathered with a curious eagerness, though many chuckled upon seeing the young, unassuming challenger. No one imagined they were about to witness the birth of a living legend. Kihei held his katana with the assured confidence of one who knows he is superior. He observed Takezo with disdain, convinced he would fell him in mere seconds. The boy, for his part, carried only a wooden stick he had picked up from the roadside. Yet, In his eyes, there was no fear, only a silent, burning fire. The duel was announced, and a collective gasp swept through the spectators. The world, for an instant, held its breath. The combat began with a sharp cry and a sudden burst of raw energy. Takezo advanced without apparent strategy, as if allowing his body to decide its own movements. Kihei attempted a direct cut, but his adversary dodged with an almost animalistic fluidity. In a single, fluid movement, Takezo's stick impacted the samurai's head with a dry, sharp sound. Kihei fell to the ground, stunned, blood trickling down his temple. The crowd fell silent, utterly unable to comprehend what had just unfolded. It was not merely a victory, it was a profound rupture. The boy without a name had vanquished a highly trained adult, humiliating him without mercy. For many, it was a desecration of honor. For others, an act of wild genius. Takezo sought no reward, nor did he celebrate. He simply walked away with the same quiet, composure with which he had arrived, as if he had merely done what was necessary. From that day, his name began to circulate with a blend of fear and profound astonishment. Destiny had taken its first decisive turn. After the duel, rumors spread along the roads like leaves scattering in the wind. Some branded him a demon. Others saw him as a reborn warrior spirit. Takezo continued his journey, facing the dangers of the path with the grim determination of a seasoned man. In the villages he passed through, he inquired about martial arts schools, yearning to confront the best masters. He sought neither glory nor wealth, only to grow with every clash of steel. On one of his wanderings, he arrived at the outskirts of Kyoto, where martial arts schools flourished like cherry blossoms in spring. He challenged disciples in their courtyards, sometimes winning with ease, other times with arduous effort. Every defeat was a painful lesson, every victory a quiet confirmation of his path. He slept under bridges or among trees. He ate what he could hunt or beg. The young man no one had wished to name was steadily transforming into a wandering swordsman. His technique followed no established school, and this disconcerted his rivals. He fought with unpredictable movements, without a fixed form, as if combat flowed from his deepest instinct. Some masters challenged him out of pride, others out of fear that his burgeoning reputation would eclipse theirs. In every case, Takezo fought with an intensity that left an indelible mark. He began to call himself Musashi, in honor of the land of his ancestors. The child had died, the warrior had been born. One day, he faced 3 disciples simultaneously in a cobblestone courtyard. Spectators thought it sheer madness, but Musashi did not hesitate. With a long stick as his only weapon, he felled one after another with sharp, direct blows. He moved not with elegance, but with brutal effectiveness. In the end, the silence was absolute. Those who had once ridiculed him began to fear him. His name was now a deepening shadow, extending across the roads of Japan. However, his life was far from glorious. Solitude accompanied him like a constant shadow. He had no true friends, no permanent masters, no place to call home. His world revolved around the next duel, the next challenge. Sometimes on cold nights, he wondered if the path he had chosen would lead him to any worthy end. But when he wielded his weapon, all doubts dissolved. Rund, combat, he found purpose. In struggle, he felt truly alive. Slowly, his fame reached influential ears. Some sought him out of respect, others out of a burning desire for vengeance. Musashi accepted any combat, regardless of numbers, place, or time. His reputation grew like an approaching storm on the horizon. He was no longer just a wandering youth. He was a living challenge to traditional schools. The wisest masters began to quietly wonder if they were witnessing the birth of a new era of martial art. Every victory of Musashi not only marked his ascent, but also questioned the very foundations of the old order. His lack of formal schooling, his apparent disregard for established rules, his fierce and free style, everything was a direct threat to the established pillars. Unwittingly, he was reforming the vision of the warrior, and though still young, the path he walked led him far from the ordinary. His destiny was no longer uncertain. It was etched by the sharp edge of his unwavering determination. And so, Musashi, forged in solitude and hardened in battle, continued to advance. His sword was still wood, yet his spirit already cut like the purest steel. With each step, he left behind the figure of a wild boy and drew closer to the myth the world was beginning to whisper. The warrior of the future had taken his first great stride toward immortality, and feudal Japan would never be the same. Chapter 3: The Path of the Wandering Warrior. After his first duels, Musashi embarked on a journey without a fixed destination, traversing unknown lands. His wandering spirit guided him, ceaselessly seeking worthy enemies and masters who could truly challenge his burgeoning skill. He walked with a firm yet silent step, observing every subtle detail, from the singing of birds to the way the wind stirred the leaves. He sought not fleeting glory, but profound perfection in every movement, in every confrontation that life presented to him. His encounters were not merely physical fights. They were profound life lessons. Often, Musashi met with peasants, artisans, and other warriors who revealed to him different ways of perceiving the world. He learned that brute strength alone was insufficient to master the art of the sword, that control of the mind and the balance of the spirit were equally paramount. His journey led him to silent temples and majestic mountains, places where stillness reigned supreme and time itself seemed to momentarily halt. Along the way, he faced numerous adversities. Wounds, gnawing hunger, and biting cold were constant companions, yet they never stopped him. Every challenge he encountered strengthened both his body and his character. Musashi began to truly understand that being a warrior was not merely about winning duels, but also about mastering oneself. His deep gaze now reflected the quiet wisdom that only suffering can impart, and his movements became even more precise and meticulously calculated. During his extensive travels, Musashi encountered various fencing schools, some traditional, others lesser known. In each, he sought to understand their hidden secrets, not to merely copy them, but to absorb whatever proved useful to him. His unique style began to mold itself like a river collecting tributaries, seamlessly combining raw force, lightning speed, and subtle cunning. He left behind his wooden stick and began to carry his first real sword, a powerful symbol of a warrior who accepted his destiny, with solemn seriousness. Musashi's fame began to precede him in the regions he traversed. Some admired him, others feared him, and many sought to confront him to test their own courage. However, the wandering swordsman did not seek enemies out of pride, but to continue learning and improving. In every combat, he saw an opportunity to discover a new aspect of himself, to draw a little closer to the mastery he dreamed of attaining. Musashi also began to develop his own unique philosophy. He observed nature and understood that everything in life was in constant flux and delicate balance. His teachings were born from direct experience, from intimate contact with the rawest reality. He came to comprehend that the true enemy was not external, but resided deep within each person. Conquering one's fears, doubts, and arrogance was the paramount first step to becoming truly invincible. His path was not devoid of solitude. Often the nights were long and cold, and the absence of companionship was keenly felt. Nevertheless, this solitude powerfully strengthened his character and allowed him to reflect deeply. Musashi wrote in his mind, meticulously recalling every duel and every teaching, thus forming the very foundation of what would become his enduring legacy. Every moment of silence was a necessary pause for growth and advancement. During this period, Musashi also faced distinguished samurai, some with famous names, others anonymous, yet equally formidable. Each combat was a dance between life and death, where only the most prepared could emerge victorious. On more than one occasion, the young warrior employed improvisation and deception to outwit his rivals, demonstrating that rigidity was not synonymous with strength. his versatility transformed into his greatest ally. The wandering warrior began to understand that the sword was not merely a physical weapon, but an instrument to master the mind and the spirit. His daily practice included meditation and keen observation, ceaselessly seeking inner harmony. Every movement became a pure expression of his mental state, and every combat a mirror of his soul. This profound connection between body and mind rendered him almost unstoppable, and each new challenge brought him closer to perfection. Years passed, and Musashi left behind many of his youthful doubts. His travels led him through valleys, over mountains, and into cities, always with the same constant search. The blood shed in his duels taught him that life is fragile and that respect for one's adversary is fundamental. In every victory or defeat, he discovered a new lesson, a new reason to continue his journey. His destiny was clear, though uncertain for many, to become the invincible master. Finally, Musashi understood that the warrior's path had no ultimate end. No matter how many enemies he vanquished or how much knowledge he acquired, there would always be something more to discover. That very idea compelled him never to stop, never to settle. His journey was eternal, like the ceaseless flow of a river. Thus, the wandering warrior continued forward, facing life with unwavering courage, profound wisdom, and an indomitable spirit. Chapter 4: The Shadow of Steel, Unvanquished. Musashi began to distinguish himself not merely by his formidable strength, but by his uncanny ability to seemingly anticipate every movement of his opponents. His body flowed with the effortless grace of a river, and his mind was perpetually one step ahead. He did not merely wield the sword as a weapon, it became an extension of his very will. In every duel, his shadow seemed to merge with the steel, rendering him almost invisible to those who faced him. His fame spread throughout all of Japan, and many began to call him invincible. But for Musashi, the true battle lay deep within himself. Every external confrontation was, for him, also a reflection of his inner struggle, his constant burning desire to transcend his own limits. It was not arrogance, but a profound commitment to excellence and the eternal pursuit of perfection. During this period, Musashi meticulously honed his unique style. He developed techniques that shattered established traditions, seamlessly blending raw power, lightning speed, and cunning surprise. Often, his movements were so unexpected that they left his rivals utterly paralyzed. His sword moved with the precision of a seasoned master, yet also with the spontaneous freedom of an artist painting in the air. He was a warrior who carved his own distinct path, far removed from rigid rules. Amidst his ascent, he confronted many distinguished warriors, some with famous names, others anonymous, yet equally fearsome. Regardless of who stood before him, Musashi maintained absolute calm. Serenity was his strongest defense, and the unwavering control of his emotions his greatest weapon. His victories were not merely physical, they were profoundly spiritual, demonstrating that true strength emanates from inner balance. His life began to assume an almost monastic rhythm. Despite being a wandering warrior, he sought moments of profound peace to meditate and study the art of combat from a deeper, more contemplative perspective. He delved into ancient texts, observed the subtle nuances of nature, and practiced breathing techniques to maintain a clear and focused mind. He understood that the sword was not merely an instrument of war, but also a profound path to enlightenment. On one particular occasion, during an exceptionally intense duel, Musashi lost the sword that had accompanied him through so many combats. Instead of despairing, he improvised, wielding two swords, and remarkably achieved victory. This episode marked a profound turning point in his career. From that moment on, he adopted the technique of using two katanas simultaneously. This groundbreaking innovation rendered him even more fearsome and further distanced him from traditional schools. The use of two swords demanded exceptional dexterity and coordination, yet Musashi mastered it through tireless practice. The seamless combination of offense and defense in a single movement allowed him to attack and protect himself concurrently. This unique technique powerfully symbolized his philosophy of life: to adapt, to evolve, and never to become stagnant. His way of fighting transformed into a living metaphor for his way of living. Despite his burgeoning prestige, Musashi steadfastly avoided attachments and life within courts or castles. He preferred the boundless freedom of the open road, the fresh air, and the raw beauty of nature. He sought neither titles nor riches, only ceaseless self-improvement. His indomitable spirit rejected any form of subjugation. Thus, he transformed into a legendary figure, a living myth who traversed the land, leaving an indelible mark with every confrontation. His influence began to grow among other warriors as well, who viewed him as an exemplary figure to emulate. Some attempted to copy his style, but few truly grasped the profound depth of his technique. Musashi did not teach his secrets to just anyone, for he believed that true mastery must arise from personal experience and unwavering dedication. For him, the sword was an extension of the soul, and every warrior had to discover their own unique path. Throughout those years, Musashi perfected not only his technique, but also his deep philosophy. He came to understand that true invincibility resides not in physical strength, but in a serene mind and an unbreakable spirit. He learned to accept death as a natural part of existence, without fear or resistance. This acceptance made him even more dangerous, for he fought without fear and with absolute freedom. In the twilight of this period, Musashi was no longer merely a young warrior, but a profound symbol of martial power and wisdom. His name inspired both respect and fear, but also immense admiration for his dedication and profound humility. His path had led him to discover that the sword and the spirit were inseparable, and that only one who mastered both could achieve true victory. Thus, his shadow extended, invincible and eternal. Chapter 5. The Dawn Duel. The sky had barely begun to blush with pink when Musashi prepared for one of the most emblematic duels of his extraordinary life. Facing him, Sasaki Kojiro awaited, a swordsman widely feared for his lightning speed and his lethal technique, famously known as the Swallow Cut. Ganryu Island was the chosen arena, a solitary place surrounded by calm waters, as if the entire world held its breath to witness that fateful encounter. Musashi arrived deliberately late, a calculated strategy to subtly disrupt his adversary's concentration. As Kojiro waited impatiently, the sun slowly ascended over the horizon. Musashi stepped off the boat with a tranquil gait, carrying only a sword he had carved from a wooden oar. This was not arrogance, but a way to convey his detachment from convention and his absolute mastery of combat. The two warriors observed each other in silence for a few eternal seconds. The air was thick with tension, as if even the birds held their song. Kojiro unsheathed his long sword, which gleamed like a serpent in the sun. Musashi, with his improvised wooden weapon, seemed like a monk facing a general. Yet in his eyes, there was a calm so profound that it made even the most confident observer falter. The duel was swift, as fleeting as a lightning. Flash. Kojiro launched his attack with superhuman speed, but Musashi had already read his movement before it even occurred. With a precise blow, he impacted his rival's head, felling him instantly. The enemy's technique had been neutralized by the tranquil mind of a man who understood the present moment like no other. Musashi did not celebrate his victory. He merely lowered his gaze and retreated in silence, leaving behind the fallen body of a great warrior. He knew that Kojiro's death was not a triumph, but a confirmation of the profound weight that the swordsman's path entailed. The island fell silent, and the sun completed its ascent, as if wishing to shroud the outcome of a duel that would forever be etched in history. News of his victory spread like wildfire through valleys and cities. Musashi had vanquished one of the greatest, and he had done so with a wooden sword. His legend grew far beyond the world of warriors, transforming him into an almost mythical figure. But deep within him, there was no jubilation, only a new level of profound understanding regarding the fragility of life and the true purpose of combat. After the duel, Musashi withdrew from the bustle and curious gazes. He sought refuge in the mountains for a time, meditating on what had transpired. There, amidst the raw beauty of nature, he began to write down his thoughts, meticulously structuring his philosophy and his understanding of the warrior's path. This was not a retreat. It was a moment of profound introspection after an act that marked an undeniable turning point. The following years were marked by significant spiritual evolution. Musashi no longer sought duels out of necessity, but as a means of teaching. Every combat was now more mental than physical, and his gaze alone could disarm even the most audacious opponents. His reputation grew without him actively seeking it, and every step he took was observed by disciples, rivals, and even feudal lords who yearned to comprehend his power. The duel with Kojiro not only refined his technique, but taught him the invaluable lesson of patience and the mastery of rhythm. He understood that a true master does not merely react, but guides the very flow of combat. Just as water adapts to the vessel that contains it, the perfect warrior adapts to the present moment. With each passing dawn, Musashi delved deeper into this profound wisdom. He was often asked why he used a wooden sword. His answer was simple. It is not the weapon that wins the duel, but the spirit that wields it. That phrase became legendary among martial arts apprentices, and his story was recounted for generations as a timeless lesson in humility, ingenuity, and inner mastery. Musashi not only vanquished Kojiro, he conquered ego, fear, and dependence on cold steel. Deep within his soul, that dawn remained etched as an eternal reminder. The sunlight reflecting on the sea, the profound silence before the clash, and the shadow that forever fell upon the figure of his rival. It was a moment of revelation, a door opened to a higher level of the warrior's path. From then on, Musashi was no longer merely a swordsman, but a powerful symbol of absolute control and living wisdom. The dawn duel was not just a battle between two masters, it was an encounter between two philosophies, between two souls that had prepared for years for that single fleeting instant. Musashi, with his sharp mind and serene spirit, demonstrated that true victory lies not in destroying the other, but in overcoming without hatred, with the quiet certainty that the greatest enemy always resides within oneself. Chapter 6. The Art of Formlessness. Musashi came to understand that true combat did not depend on brute force or the rigid mastery of a fixed technique. The true secret lay in adapting like water, flowing without a fixed form, and acting from a state of inner emptiness. Thus was born his deepest philosophy: to be like nothing, to take the form of the moment, and to vanish at you, the precise instant. He was no longer merely a swordsman, he was a principle in perpetual motion. He began to transmit this profound idea through his actions and his quiet teachings. He discarded defined styles, embracing unpredictability as his signature. Every movement in battle was spontaneous, a pure product of cultivated intuition. If the enemy attacked from the right, he had already dissolved to the left. If they awaited him with aggression, he responded with profound stillness. His very presence was like a shifting wind. In his writings, especially in the book later known as the Book of Five Rings, he clearly expounded this vision. There, he did not merely teach how to wield a sword, but how to live in perfect equilibrium with the perception of the present moment. Every enemy was unique, every situation unrepeatable. Therefore, rigidity was a trap. Only emptiness allowed for true victory. Musashi practiced this formlessness even in daily life. He walked without a fixed destination, ate when he was hungry, and slept wherever dusk found him. He required no luxuries, no titles, no rigid structures. His sword was a part of his body, but also of his mind. He could be unarmed and still dominate his environment. His discipline had no set schedule because it was constant. Some accused him of becoming eccentric, of straying too far from samurai tradition. But Musashi sought no approval, only true understanding. For him, formlessness was not chaos, but absolute clarity. He observed leaves falling, water flowing, and animals moving. And in each of these simple gestures, he found teachings more profound than in any dojo. Even his combats began to grow shorter. He no longer needed to exchange multiple blows or prove his strength. A single movement sufficed, sometimes even a mere gaze. His intention was so pure and direct that it disarmed the enemy before physical contact. Just as a mountain commands respect without speaking, Musashi became a living symbol of inner mastery. The disciples who followed him received not exact techniques but profound questions. Where is your mind when you raise your sword? What do you see when you close your eyes in combat? What do you do when you can do nothing? For many, it was disconcerting, but those who persevered began to feel the depth of his teaching. It was not technique, it was awakening. The notion of no style began to influence other warriors. Some attempted to copy him without understanding that it was not about imitating the external, but about cultivating the internal. Musashi did not teach how to be like him, but how to be oneself in one's freest form. His school had no fixed name because each person had to find their own path without imposed molds. With the passage of time, his name became a living legend, yet he continued to walk as an ordinary man. He sought no disciples, but they found him. He offered no answers, but his silences spoke more than 1,000 words. Deep down, he knew that. The true art of the sword lay not in the sword itself, but in the spirit that held it, without even needing to wield it. Every combat he avoided was also a victory. He understood that fighting is not always the warrior's path. Sometimes wisdom lies in knowing when not to draw the sword. That was not cowardice, but true mastery. Only one who can win without fighting truly understands the profound power of martial art. Musashi became increasingly ethereal, like a whisper among mountains. His body aged, but his mind expanded. He no longer needed to move swiftly because he was everywhere at once. The sounds, the gestures, the emotions of others, everything was visible to him, like words on an open scroll. To be formless was his purest form. Like water, he could strike like a torrent or calm like a breeze. That was his path. The art of formlessness is not an escape from the world, but a total integration with it. Musashi rejected nothing. He incorporated everything. Attack, defense, fear, and peace were all part of the same continuous flow. Thus, he became not only an invincible swordsman, but a truly free man. And in that freedom, he found the most difficult thing to attain: inner harmony. Chapter 7. The Cave of the Soul. In the final years of his life, Musashi retreated from the world's clamor and sought refuge in a solitary cave on Mount Iwato in Kumamoto province. That place was austere, with no company but the stones, the wind, and the profound silence. There were no furnishings or comforts, only a mat, an oil lamp, and his unyielding determination to gaze inward. He no longer sought external enemies, but rather inner shadows. The world knew him as invincible, but he understood that the true battle was only just beginning. With each new dawn, he meditated in the cave's darkness, observing his thoughts pass like fleeting clouds. The echo of his footsteps resonated like ancient questions. There, far from applause and challenges, he wrote what would become his most enduring legacy: the Gorin no Sho, or the Book of Five Rings, divided into 5 sections: earth, water, fire, wind, and void. The book was more than a mere treatise on swordsmanship. It was a spiritual guide, a profound synthesis of his life. In the Earth Scroll, he spoke of foundation, of the essential balance required to begin any path. In the Water Scroll, he taught adaptability, that fluid grace that had defined him. In the Fire Scroll, he addressed conflict, the burning moment of combat. The Wind Scroll presented observations of other schools, not to criticize them, but to understand their limits. But it was in the Void Scroll where he poured his deepest understanding. The absence of form, the transcendence of ego, absolute freedom. There he wrote that true knowledge has no beginning or end, and that only one who comprehends the void can win without fighting. It was his testament of wisdom. Every word of that book was penned with the precision of a sword. He sought not to impress, but to guide. He offered no embellishments, only raw truths. Whoever read it had to be willing to look within themselves, for the answers were not on the paper, but in the reader's heart. Musashi did not wish to leave behind disciples, but seekers. His work was a lamp for anyone who dared to traverse their own inner cave. During those solitary days, his body began to weaken. The harshness of the years finally caught up to him, but his spirit remained firm as a mountain. On his face, there was calm, not nostalgia. He did not cling to the past, nor did he fear the future. He simply wrote, meditated, and contemplated. The cold, silent cave transformed into a temple of profound transformation. There, Musashi ceased to be a man and quietly became a symbol. He received visitors rarely. Some disciples approached with respect, offering him food or seeking counsel. He received them with serenity, spoke little, and listened more. His words were simple, yet they left deep impressions. He spoke to them of the unity between mind and body, of acting without thinking, of feeling without being overwhelmed, and above all, of living without fear, neither of death nor of life. In the cave's dim light, he recalled every step of his path, not with pride, but with acceptance. Every duel won, every solitary night, every mistake made was part of the same continuous stroke. He understood that his story was but a single drop in the river of time, and yet that drop possessed its own unique form, its own sound, its own destined course. It was a unique fragment of the great scroll of existence. In those final days, his sword rested by his side, but he no longer wielded it. He needed no more battles. The true victory was to be at peace. He did not lament nor ask for more time. He simply breathed, wrote, and merged with the silence. Death was not an enemy to him, but another visitor, someone to receive with dignity, as one receives the final opponent with a profound bow. Slowly, his hands ceased writing. The book was complete, and so too was his journey. He closed his eyes one morning with the same serene gesture with which he used to meditate. Light timidly entered through the cave's opening, and in that instant, his figure seemed to merge with the stone, as if he had always been there. Musashi's body ceased, but his presence became immortal. The Cave of the Soul, as it was later called, became a place of pilgrimage. Warriors, monks, artists, and seekers of meaning ascended the mountain to sit in the very silence that Musashi had honored. They found no ready answers, but rather profound questions, and in them, the master's echo remained vibrantly alive, not in the form of direct instructions, but as a mirror in which to gaze without masks. Musashi did not die. He simply ceased needing his body. What he bequeathed to the world was far more than mere technique or fleeting fame. It was an invisible path, meticulously traced between steel and the void. A way to live with unwavering courage, to think with absolute clarity, and to die with serene tranquility. In the Cave of the Soul, the warrior became a sage, and in that eternal silence, Musashi too became eternal. Chapter 8. The End of the Living Sword. The final stage of Miyamoto Musashi's life was profoundly marked by a deep calm and a silent wisdom. After years of relentless duels and solitary wanderings, he finally comprehended that the true sword is not wielded by the hands, but by the spirit. The time had come to leave behind physical combat and embrace profound transcendence. The wandering warrior quietly prepared for the most difficult farewell, that of his own body. His retreat to Reigondo Cave was far more than mere isolation. It was a profound metamorphosis. Musashi no longer needed to fight to be strong. He knew that mastery of the sword was merely a reflection of inner mastery. His gaze no longer sought adversaries, but rather eternal truths. He dedicated his remaining days to writing, to meditating, and to preparing his soul for the ultimate step. It was the final act of his path. During this period, he also penned Dokodo, or The Path of Self-Reliance, also translated as The Way of Walking Alone, or The Way of Solitude. This work comprised 21 precepts that succinctly summarized his innermost philosophy. There, he spoke of detachment, of profound humility, and of unwavering integrity. He rejected luxury, dismissed fear, and advocated for emotional independence. It was a stern message, yet utterly pure, written not to be admired, but to be deeply lived. Musashi did not offer advice. He offered a living example. Each day was a silent ceremony. Musashi would contemplate the mountains, feel the wind's embrace, listen to the forest's whispers, and perceive in nature the very same principles he had discovered through the sword: fluidity, firmness, and profound transformation. Life, for him, was a combat without enemies, and death an inevitable movement. He did not fear it. He respected it as another master, and with that quiet acceptance, he awaited it. His health slowly began to decline, but his spirit remained undimmed. There were no complaints, no laments. He accepted the deterioration with the same serene composure with which he had faced hundreds of swords. He sought no cures nor companionship. He only requested to be left in peace. For him, the body was merely another tool, like a brush or a bokken. Once its purpose was fulfilled, it was to be released with profound gratitude. One day, he knew the moment was drawing near. He dressed in his kimono, sat in seiza posture, and took his sword, not to fight, but to honor the very symbol that had accompanied him throughout his entire life. He closed his eyes and softly recited his precepts. There were no tears, no pleas, only an immense calm, like a tranquil lake at dawn. His breathing became slow, deep, almost inaudible. In that instant, his figure seemed carved from stone, yet his soul shone like the very sun. Musashi had lived without fear, loved without attachment, and fought without hatred. His life was a straight line drawn in the air. He left no direct heirs, yet he left behind a trail that many would follow. In his last breath there was no sound, only a void filled with profound meaning. The living sword had dimmed, but its edge continued to cut through time. Rumors of his death spread with respect and astonishment. Warriors from all corners made the pilgrimage to the cave to pay him homage. Some carried offerings, others simply brought their silence. All felt that something grand had vanished, yet also that something eternal had been born. It was not a funeral, it was a consecration. Musashi was no longer just a man, but a guiding spirit. His legacy expanded far beyond the confines of the dojo. He inspired not only samurai, but artists, philosophers, and strategists. His writings were copied, studied, and revered. But beyond the words, what truly endured was his profound example. The way he lived, the way he thought, and the way he died was the true teaching, a voiceless lesson transmitted in the very language of the soul. With the passage of centuries, his figure transformed into myth. Some claimed he could defeat 100 men without a hair out of place. Others asserted he could foresee the future in the midst of combat. But the most powerful truth was another. Musashi had conquered the only truly invincible enemy, himself. The final struggle was not against a swordsman, but against his own inner being. And that battle, he won with quiet humility. Musashi's tomb today is a place of profound respect. There are no luxuries, no ostentatious monuments, only a simple stone and moss that quietly grows. But those who pause before it feel something indescribable. It is neither sadness nor glory. It is a palpable presence. The sensation of standing before one who truly comprehended the art of living with total fulfillment. There rests one who was sword, wisdom, and soul. Miyamoto Musashi did not seek to be remembered. He sought only to be true. And in that profound search, he found immortality. His sword was merely the beginning, his spirit, the true masterpiece. In the end, he left no followers or direct disciples, but rather a profound path. The very same path that each individual must walk with their own soul if they wish to find the liberation he ultimately achieved. Thus ends the story of the man who transformed into legend. Chapter 9. Unveiling the Invincible Master. Miyamoto Musashi was not merely an unbeatable warrior. He was also a man brimming with mysteries and subtle nuances that many often overlook. For example, it is widely known that he fought over 60 duels and never once suffered a defeat. But what is truly curious is that many of these victories were achieved without causing the death of his opponent. His objective was not to kill, but to win through sheer technical superiority. This demonstrates his profound mastery of the art of control. Despite his image as a solitary warrior, Musashi also maintained deep, affectionate bonds. It is known that he adopted children and cared for apprentices during his later years. Although he appeared stern and distant, he possessed a compassionate heart, especially towards young individuals seeking guidance. Many contemporary accounts recount how he treated his disciples with rigor, yet also with profound respect and protection. One of the most fascinating curiosities is that he never married nor showed interest in forming a traditional family. His commitment lay with the warrior's path and his spiritual quest. He believed that attachment could cloud a swordsman's judgment. In his life, there was no room for distractions. Every decision he made was a deliberate step toward personal perfection. Musashi was also ambidextrous, a rare detail that granted him an immense advantage in combat. He could fight with both hands, simultaneously, utilizing his two-sword technique. This style, known as Niten Ichi-ryu, marked a revolution in combat. Many attempted to imitate him, but few could replicate his mastery without falling into imbalance. Another curious fact is that he suffered from a skin condition that caused him constant itching. This made it difficult for him to wear heavy armor, so he opted for lighter garments. That physical disadvantage led him to focus even more on speed, precision, and anticipation. He transformed every weakness into an opportunity for growth. His body was never an obstacle to his spirit. It is said that he had a very special relationship with nature. In his writings, he refers to trees, rocks, animals, and rivers as silent teachers. He observed the flight of birds to understand the rhythms of combat. He watched the clouds to grasp the fluidity of the mind. For Musashi, the world was a dojo without walls. Everything taught if one only knew how to observe. Although many imagine him as a severe man, he also possessed a deep artistic side. His paintings reflect serenity and sensitivity. He used black ink on white paper, drawing with decision, yet without rigidity. Every work was like a precise, spontaneous, and unrepeatable strike. His art was an extension of his sword. Beauty and lethality walked hand in hand. Few know that he rejected several offers from the most powerful clans of feudal Japan. He preferred to remain free, without political ties or material ambitions. Even when the shogunate offered him prestigious positions, he courteously declined them. He sought not power, but clarity. He sought not glory, but truth. That firmness transformed him into a living legend, even among his contemporaries. Once he feigned illness to avoid fighting an impulsive young man who sought to challenge him. Instead of humiliating him with a defeat, he chose to protect his soul from resentment. That act of compassion showed that his sword no longer needed rage. He had understood that the highest victory was the one that avoided conflict. Strength without compassion was weakness in disguise. It is said that he could remain motionless for hours, meditating or simply observing his surroundings. This mastery of body and mind was the result of an iron discipline. He slept little, ate moderately, and trained tirelessly. His life was a constant forge. The warrior was born not in battle, but in the daily renunciation of the superficial. Every gesture held purpose. Musashi is quoted today not only by martial artists, but by leaders, entrepreneurs, and thinkers. His work, The Book of Five Rings, is studied worldwide as a guide to strategy and practical wisdom. But beyond techniques, his central teaching remains spiritual: to conquer without hatred, to advance without haste, to live without fear. That is his true legacy. If this story has touched your spirit, if any part of your soul resonated with Musashi's path, I invite you to stay with us. On this channel, we share stories that not only entertain, but awaken. Subscribe, activate the bell, and consider becoming a member. Members receive early access to new tales like this, because every warrior also needs a refuge of wisdom. Chapter Extra: The Unseen Depths of Art and Strategy. Although many know Musashi's exploits with the sword, few realize that his art also flourished in painting. He used black ink and fine brushes to create dragons, birds, and landscapes that reflected his profound philosophy. His works were not merely art, they were an extension of his warrior soul. Every stroke was imbued with intention and emptiness at the same time. For him, painting was another duel, but against himself. Musashi also wrote extensively on strategy beyond physical combat. He taught how to maintain a clear mind, even amidst chaos. In his writings, there are references to how a warrior should walk, how to gaze at enemies, and even how to breathe. His wisdom encompassed every aspect of daily life. For him, strategy was a way of existing, not merely of fighting. One of Musashi's most curious practices was his detachment. For years, he did not bathe nor sleep in traditional beds. He believed that comfort weakened the warrior's spirit. He chose caves, cold floors, and simple clothes. He sought no pleasures nor possessions. His life was a constant discipline where everything had a purpose. In his later years, Musashi adopted an even more austere lifestyle. He retired to a cave, known as Reigando, where he penned the Book of Five Rings. There, he meditated, wrote, and contemplated the flow of time. He sought not fame, but understanding. He accepted death as a silent daily visitor. Musashi practiced mental combat even in times of peace. He observed people, listened to their words, and analyzed their gestures. He understood that human beings reveal more with their bodies than with their mouths. That is why his combats were anticipations. He would defeat before fighting, reading the minds of his adversaries. A surprising curiosity is that he never married nor had descendants. He stated that his chosen path allowed no distractions. His only companions were his sword and his conscience. He left no biological lineage, but his spiritual legacy extended for generations. His lineage was that of those who seek perfection in silence. Musashi was also a master in the use of ma, the space between movements. In his combats, he used pauses to confuse his opponents. He knew that action without emptiness is noise, and that silence can cut more deeply than a sword. This mastery of rhythm made him seem supernatural. Some records speak of his two-sword fighting technique known as Niten Ichi Ryu. It was revolutionary for its time. Most used only a single katana, but he wielded one in each hand with uncanny precision. This school is still studied today, keeping alive the memory of his unique style. A little-known anecdote recounts how Musashi used an oar as a sword in one of his duels. Without time to sharpen a katana, he improvised and still won. It was not the tool that mattered, but the spirit that guided it. That was always his philosophy. The mind conquers, not the metal. It is also known that in his youth, he feigned madness to avoid unnecessary duels. He walked strangely, spoke to trees, and slept standing up. Thus, he avoided the attention of those who sought only fame. His humility protected his energy, reserving it only for those truly worthy of combat. Musashi believed that the true warrior must master not only his sword, but also his mind, his body, and his environment. That is why he walked long distances, fasted, and observed nature. He said that the wind, the water, and the mountains taught him more than any masters. The earth was his dojo. Even after his death, many claim to see his figure on rural roads or in lost caves, not as a ghost, but as an eternal memory. For the Japanese, Musashi transcended his physical body. He became a powerful symbol of self-discipline, self-improvement, and the silence that shouts louder than any noise. If this journey has touched your spirit, do not forget to follow us and become a member of the channel. Members get early access to new stories filled with wisdom and emotion. May the spirit of Musashi guide you on your own paths.